Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to the sheep pen. Bah, where no goats are allowed. Bah, can you say sheep pen? Bah. I want to introduce everyone to my adopted grandson. This is Little Man. Little Man, say hi. What's up? Say hi. Blow him kisses. Blow him kisses. No. So I want to tell the story today of who Little Man is and how he got in my life. Look at your face on there, Little Man. Isn't that cool? You see Papa? Right? Well, Little Man's been a part of my life for a little over a year. And I'm letting the cat out of the bag. He's been living with me since July. So I want to tell the story of how Little Man came to live with me and what a joy he's been in my life. And how I've been kind of hiding my personal life a little bit from y'all. But I wanted to share. God told me it was time to share. And make Little Man the star that he is. Say goodbye to him. Say goodbye. Bye. See ya. I'm going to hand him off. All right, there you go. Go with Mama. Okay, so how did I end up with a 1.5-year-old in my life? Well, for one thing, you got to know about him. He's obviously super smart. He's teeny tiny. He was a premature baby, weighing 4.5 pounds when he was born. And he was born right before I met his family. And what you don't know is that he is the baby of the family whose house we helped save last winter. And our intervention into their lives was a correction in the course of the greater life of this family. And our intervention, although to some might seem like a failure, was absolutely a true triumph, and it changed the course of their lives. And I can't tell my story now without first telling theirs. So as you know, I encountered this family last winter who was about to lose their home. They were living in a house that they were trying to buy from the Chickasaw Nation, and they'd had the house for many years, but they were never able to make the payments on the house. And the Chickasaws won't throw you out as long as you can pay the basic taxes on the property. And they keep the property in their name, and you don't get it till you pay it off. And they were never able to get anywhere but upside down on this property, just paying the taxes. And the house fell into disrepair, and it's because the family was in disrepair. So I guess their story starts back many years ago. A man and a woman, the man in his early 20s, the woman just a girl of 15, started a life together. And the husband, which is Little Man's real grandfather, made a decision in his life. He's a little bit younger than me, about my age. Made a decision in his life very early on that he didn't really want to do anything with his life except do as much drugs and have as much fun as he could. And that left his young bride with the responsibility of taking care of the family. So while he pursued his life of drugs, and she stood by him throughout the years, never giving in to the drugs herself, being very much against his drug use, but she worked full time and took care of the family and was the mother and the father in so many ways to this family. And at the time that I encountered the family, the father had finally succumbed to his life of choices, his life of drug addiction, and a combination of a massive physical problem, his midlife crisis, and a mental breakdown caused by his lifelong drug use, turned him into one of these people who wander the street talking to themselves. And that left the mother, now a grandmother with a brand new grandbaby, kids living at home, grown kids for the most part, early adults, young adults, and with none of them having any way of taking care of themselves except her continuous work. And so they were about to lose their house, and we intervened at Christmas time. We were able to put it off for 6 months until they finally did lose their house. And the whole family came from far south Oklahoma up here to where I'm at, because The little man's great grandfather has a place in Shawnee, and the whole family moved into his basement. And at this point, we started getting closer. I became more part of their family. I was around a lot more. But they had a major issue. The great grandfather, the little man that lives in Shawnee, has got mental issues of his own. And he's old and somewhat senile. And his house has many, many years of filth and maintenance issues. It was falling down around him. And he couldn't do anything and didn't want them to do anything to make the house any better. And so a distant cousin, a lesbian couple, had just rented a new house, and they offered to let the young family, the mother and the father of little man and little man, come in and live in their house. They had a spare bedroom. And so it was a clean, modern place to live. It was much better than the house they had lost to the Native Americans, which was in absolute disrepair and nothing worked. Plumbing problems. It was, it was just a mess. Their life was a mess. And great-grandpa's house wasn't any better. And so they took this opportunity and moved in to this house. And this lesbian couple, as soon as they came to stay with them, left on an extended business trip, and they had the place to themselves, unfurnished for the most part, air beds, but it had a kitchen and a bathroom, and they started trying to make a life for themselves. The lesbian couple was gone for several weeks until the rent was due again, and they kept calling and telling them that they would be home soon and that they couldn't pay the rent, but just tell the landlord that they would pay it when they got back. Now, this young couple in their early 20s, the mother of little man is partially disabled and gets a check from the government, a small amount. It's partial disability. Not enough to rent a house and pay rent and have a place of their own, but enough to feed and clothe them and provide for their basic necessities. And the amount they get every month was equal to the cost of 1 month's rent in the duplex that they were staying in of this lesbian couple that had gone missing in action. So when the rent came due, they rolled the dice against my better judgment, and they paid the rent on this place with the missing lesbian couple. And one Saturday morning, they were still sleeping when a joint task force of the county, the city, and the Light Horse Police from the Potawatomi Nation served a search warrant on this property and caught the young family unaware of what was going on. Ended up with both of them face down, handcuffed, very confused police officers. It was a full-blown SWAT. They raided the house, and they had a legitimate search warrant. As it turns out, the cousins that they had trusted, this lesbian couple, was gone on business. They were gone on some very illegal business. And the reason they hadn't come back is because things had gone south, and now they had the feds and the local police and the county and everyone working together to locate them. And so here they were, basically squatting in this empty house that's now been raided by the police, and they were terrified. And the police were threatening to take little man away from them. And so I swooped in. I have this spare bedroom that's half finished in my second cabin. You know, I have two cabins, the one I live in and a half finished one that came with the property. So little man came to live with me last July. I vouched for them with the Child Protective Services. They came out and did a house visit. We passed. I charmed them. Luckily, the agent involved that was the social worker in charge of little man's case loves country living, is a country boy, came with a big cowboy hat and wished he had a place like this out in the woods. And a city person might have looked down on what we got going on here and not let him live with us, and they might have lost him to foster care, to a foster home. But we were able to keep hold of him, and it was greatly because of my intervention in their life. So they've been living in my spare cabin for the last, since July, last summer. And I, in the meantime, have taught little man how to talk. Taught him how to blow kisses. I couldn't get him to do it for you guys. Taught him how to walk. He's 15 months, he's 17 months old. And I've known him since he was 3 months old. And I gotta say, he's a special kid, even though his mother and father have issues. You know, and I don't think they would be angry at me for saying this. They have IQ issues, developmental issues of their own, but their baby is brilliant. I never seen a kid so in love with music. Since the first day I met him, if you put any kind of music on, even when he was 3 months old, he would bob his head. And he jams out and plays air guitar, and you know, he's never been really exposed to music. He just has it in his blood. And put a little prophecy out there. I think he might end up being a music student for me someday, and I might teach him what I know about music. You know, I want this video to be about my past, my present, and my future. I had to let you in on my present, that now I have an adopted family. I'm recognized as Pawpaw. Even though little man has 2 grandfathers and a great-grandfather, I doubt any of them could pull up his name in their mind if you asked them. And he's been a part of my life for over a year now. It'll be a year ago in November. And he's brought so much joy to my life. He's reinvigorated my life. And in so many ways, it's fulfilling a hole left in my life. You know, I was very much a solitary person, a hermit sage. And, you know, I will say that was a good time for me. It was good for me. But it was also slowly draining me of my life force. I began to feel like I was living almost completely in the supernatural world, and the natural world seemed out of place to me. I was becoming more and more isolated and more okay with it. And then, through chance, I encountered this family who needed us. And we put off them losing their home. Eventually they would lose their home, and the family would kind of scatter. And a little man and his parents would end up here, and other people went other places. And sometimes that happens. What we did when we helped them out last winter is we kept their electric and their heat going and their hot water going through the winter. If we hadn't intervened, they would have lost their house right at Christmas. And as it turns out, they relinquished their house in July of last year and gave it back to the Indians. And they went other places to live. It's been a difficult life for little man. He spent a great deal of his very early infancy couch surfing, for the most part. You don't know too many little kids like that have been through a multi-jurisdictional SWAT raid on their home, or the place they were staying. You know, they had nothing to do with that, and had no idea that these cousins that had opened their home to them were criminals. But as it turns out, they were in fact deeply criminal. And I'm just lucky at that point that they were okay with coming and staying in my rustic cabin in the woods. And now we've grown so close that I know, regardless of what happens, they'll be a part of my life forever. And I suspect, you know, there's a saying around here, Grandpa is as Grandpa does. And I have been the grandpa to him. And I've taught him so much. And he's just been a blessing to my heart. And I wanted to share that with you. I also want to talk about the future of the channel. You know, for those of you that don't know my past, I'm sorry, I get all teary-eyed. Little man makes me happy. I get happy tears. But a little bit of my past. Some of you who've been watching me for a long time. You know, I was raised by a preacher/Marine. That my dad was not just a preacher, but kind of a Native American fishing guide to the famous preachers of the world. And I spent my early childhood debating these men while I was also piloting the boat that they were riding in. I started piloting my dad's boat, so I ran the boat while they fished, starting at about age 5. I became a professional musician. I played 12 instruments. I gave that up after my true crossroads story, which you can find if you Google Sage Wanderer True Crossroads Story. And when I first started talking about the Illuminati and the cabal that controls the entertainment industry, it was something that a few people knew about, but wasn't really mainstream news. And over the past 2 or 3 years, you've got major stars coming out talking about it. The most recent one was, of course, Cat Williams, the famous African American stand-up comedian who blew the whistle. And, you know, he said the main job of people that have sold their soul to the devil is to act like it never happened, to convince you it never happened. So he's blowing the whistle on these people that have sold their soul to the devil. Because I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't renounce my Christian faith, I got blackballed from the higher levels of the music business at a very early age. And I went into ministry. And I was successful in ministry. I became a regional youth director over a movement over 3 states in a small international denomination. And if you want to know that story, find the video that says why I left the ministry and why now I live by faith. And, you know, I started this channel on a lark, living in a van down by the river. It seemed like my life had already cycled all the way through. You know, my kids were grown. I didn't have anyone in my life. I put so much into my family that I really didn't have any kind of friend group, or there really wasn't much of a reason to live after my kids grew up. And my kids actually convinced me to start this channel, to just tell my stories, tell about my crazy, incredible life and the things that I've been through. And the channel took off. It was like a skyrocket. You know, I went from nothing to not even knowing people were watching to having 36,000 subscribers in a very short period of time, about the course of a year. And then the big censorship push came from YouTube, and I got shadow banned. And amazingly, through God's guidance, I managed to avoid having my channel completely removed, which happened to most of the people of my vintage who were saying the things that I was saying at the time. And that leads us up until the summer of 2021, where at that point I'm burned out with the channel. I'm tired of the politics. It seems like our side is losing at that point. I can see the writing on the wall. I can see that Biden will probably win, that the world is becoming more hostile towards people like me, and I was less welcome on YouTube, and I was just ready to lay it down and get a job delivering DoorDash, and that's kind of what I did. And I stopped making videos. And at that time, I also stopped talking about my personal life. That I had a relationship with a woman named Catherine who wanted to kind of be co-host on my show, and that just turned out to be a public disaster for me. And I decided not to talk about my personal life since then. But everything is stabilized with this family that's now under my wing. I don't see them going anywhere. Everybody's really happy. Now, little man's mama is expecting little man's little sister soon. Little man's mama is pregnant. She's not due till February 21st, which ironically is my birthday. But there's complications in the pregnancy. The baby's not getting the right nutrition because there's something wrong with the umbilical cord. And that baby is also tiny, like little man was. She's just now 4 pounds, and that's how big little man was when he was born. And they're going to take her early on January 31st. They're going to induce, because they can't guarantee the baby's safety if they don't go ahead and make it happen. So I have a lot going on in my life with this family, and it dominates a lot of my time. Not any more than any other active grandparent, I suppose. But I'm their sole source of transportation. They don't have a car. We live way out here in the country. So I take them to all their doctor's appointments. And there's been a lot of those. 2 a week now in Oklahoma City. And the little bit of money they have, they just spend on themselves. And I offer them free rent. And I pay their utilities here. Which isn't that much. You know, it's just half a cabin. So they're really not costing me anything, and they're bringing a whole lot to my life. And the only thing they're costing me is time and energy and mileage on my car. A little bit of gas money, running them around to these appointments. But I feel like I'm doing a really good thing. I feel like little man has a home now. He didn't have one before. He's got a grandpa, And no matter what relation we are or aren't, you'll never convince him that I'm not his grandpa, and I probably always will be. You know, you imprint on a kid when they're little like that. And they don't really care who you are, you're the one that's there. So I've been spending a lot of time babysitting. It's me and him around here a lot. He's in my house a lot. And with the new baby coming, I imagine he'll be around even more. My sister loves this family to death. We've become kind of a joined family. We're having a get together next week for a baby shower for the mama in question. And but I wanted you to know that God blessed me with this fulfilling a hole in my life. I've never been happier to stub my toe on a baby toy, and I don't even mind changing a diaper. And I'm as happy, maybe, as I've ever been. And God has restored to me everything that was lost and then some. And He's good to me. And I want you to know that you guys have played such a huge role in this. I wouldn't have time if I had to work a full-time job to help take care of little man. I wouldn't be able to spend time with him. And, of course, I wouldn't be able to make these videos without your support and your help. And you guys make my life happen. And it's because of the stability that you've brought to my life through this channel. Keeping me focused. Keeping me walking the tightrope with God. And I have a future and a hope for the channel. One of the things that makes me very different as a minister is that I have a unorthodox view of religion and Christianity in particular. And I want to more clearly define what makes sage ministry, sage religion tick. You know, how it works for me, how it can work for you. I want to talk more about spiritual power and authority. One of the things that makes me different is my focus on love and caring for other people. And I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. But I felt God told me it was time to share with you my personal life. And that's it. I'm Papa to little man. And I'm soon to be Papa to little Jazzy as well. That's what we'll call her, I suppose. And I just need y'all's prayers concerning this pregnancy. We're all very concerned, very worried. And but I know God's going to work it all out. And God is at work in all things to those who love God and are called according to His purpose. So you can take that promise to the bank, as I do. Your support is much valued, and I love every one of you because you've made my life possible. And I hope I've given something back to you. Maybe a sense of purpose in your own life. Maybe healing from your past. I know I've healed a lot from my past. And I pass that on, you know. The healed heal people, and the hurt people. And I hope that through this channel I've turned some hurt people into some healed people. And I know through your feedback that the love has spread throughout all of your lives and into the lives of the people around you. And I pray that that continues, and it can only continue through your continued support of the channel. There's a link to PayPal and Cash App for your love offerings and donations. And you can always hit me up at my P.O. box and drop me a note at my my Gmail account, which is listed in the description right there with the PayPal and Cash App link. And we'll see you next time on the Sheep Pen.